Good morning. My name is Ms P Tlakula again. I'm here for grade 10 life sciences. Today we are going to do something very simple. We are going to revise on the upcoming examination, final examination, just to give you tips on what to look out for and as you prepare so that you know how to prepare. Thank you. So let's get on to it. So we are going to revise on the biosphere, the biodiversity and classification, ecology and environmental issues, the cell structure and function, plant and animal tissues, photosynthesis and cellular respiration, support systems in animals, specifically the human skeleton, transport systems in mammals. Specifically, we're going to look at the humans, reproduction in vertebrates and in humans. So let's start. So the biosphere. The biosphere is the zone of life on Earth. It has the levels, which we call them the biological organization. For you to reach to the biosphere, you have to start at the organism. Then the organism grows into a population. Then the population grows into a community. The community grows into an ecosystem. Then an ecosystem grows into a biome. Then you have what we call the biosphere. Within the biosphere, you must have the abiotic and the non-biotic components. The abiotic and the biotic components. The abiotic are the non-living components such as the sunlight, the air or the wind, the water and the soil. And the biotic components, we talk about animals and plants. So it is important in the energy flow and nutrient cycle. So when you study for an exam, you have to know the role of the decomposers, the producers, and the consumers in the ecosystem. For example, on the picture that we have here, you know that your decomposers are very important. These are your microbes that decompose everything and fertilize the ground or the soil so that the primary producers, which are the plants, can grow and be supported by the nutrients on the soil. Then the primary consumers, these are your insects that forages on your plants. And then we have the secondary consumers, which are your other animals, which also feed on the insects. For an example, you'll have your rats. And then we have the tertiary consumers, your lions, which eats on the secondary consumers. The secondary consumers feed on the primary consumers. The primary consumers feed on the producers, and the producers depend on the decomposers. Does that make sense? I hope so. So now we have what we call the levels of biodiversity and classification. Within the biodiversity and classification, we have 5 kingdoms of life. We have the kingdom Monera, the Protista, the fungi, the plantia, and the animals. So within also the kingdoms, there is what we call classification, where we classify according to the binomial nomenclature, where you start at the species level, then the genus, the family, the order, the class, the phylum, the kingdom, the domain, and the life itself. So remember that. So you must also remember the importance of this classification in biodiversity and in the ecosystem. So also consider knowing the endemism and the conservation efforts of South African biodiversity, considering also the 5 kingdoms and their classification. So we are going to talk about ecology and the environmental issues. This is very important, especially the biomes of South Africa. We have about 9 biomes, remember. We have the succulent karoo, the savanna, the Namakaru, which is the coast, the Indian Ocean, which is the coastal belt, the grassland biome, the fynbos, the forest, the desert, and the Albany thicket biomes. These are very important for us to know about them, because if we know about them, we will be careful of the human impact and the disturbances that we cause, like your pollution of the environment, deforestation, the bringing in of invasive species, urbanization, and etc. So this also add value in the food chain and the food web system. So you must also, for an exam tip, learn the ecological pyramid, where you learn the numbers and the biomass and the energy flow within also the biome and the ecosystem and the food chain, and the disturbances that people cause within the biomes, and that affects the entire ecosystem or the biome. And then it will cause things such as your climate change, changes in weather patterns, like what we have experienced since 2020, the floods in Durban, the earthquakes in other areas, and stuff like that. So if you know this, it will be easy to answer your exam questions. So also in this, learn of the cell structure and the functions, specifically the plant and the animal cells. They are very important, because these are actually the main components in the biodiversity, or the biosphere, or the ecosystem. So in that, the key organelles that you need to know is the nucleus, the mitochondria, the chloroplast, the ribosomes, and the vacuoles, and their functions, especially the function of the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the DNA. So you should also be able to differentiate between the prokaryotes and the eukaryote cells. Like this picture that is here on our side, you see the differences between the eukaryotic cells and the prokaryotic cells is that the eukaryotic cells are big and very complex. This will be your plant and animals. They have the nucleus, the cell wall, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the membrane-bound organelles, while the prokaryotic cells, they are very small and simple. These are your bacteria, your microbes. And if you know the differences, you are good to go during the exam. And also know how to draw the diagram of the plant and the animal cells, and how to label it. So you should also learn about the plant and the animal tissues. And here we have the primary animal tissues, which is the epithelial tissue, the muscle tissue, the connective tissue, and the nervous tissue. There are actually 4. And then in the plant tissues, we have the meristem and the permanent tissues. You must also know their function and locations in the body or in the plant. So for the exam tip, practice labeling tissues, their diagrams, and matching structures to the function. The other important aspect to learn about for examination preparation is the photosynthesis and the cellular respiration. So the photosynthesis, remember, is made up of 6 carbon dioxide, 6 waters, plus sunlight, and it releases what we call the sugars, which is made up of the 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, 6 oxygen, and plus 6 oxygen as well. So the cellular respiration is made up of the sugars, the 6 oxygen, which release into the 6 carbon dioxide, and the 6 waters, and the energy. So in that, you must understand that this works together. They don't work separately, considering the energy level that we spoke about before. So In the plant, obviously, we talk about the photosynthesis, where it occurs in the chloroplast. You must remember that, and it needs energy. It acquires its energy from the sun, and then it produces the glucose. And then within the animal cell, we have what we call the mitochondria. When we consume this plant, then in the mitochondria, that's where the cellular respiration occurs, and then energy is released. This energy is the one that we require to function. So you must also learn about the organelle, where it's located, the chloroplast, where is it located within the plant, and the mitochondria, where it's located within the animal, and also link it to the energy level that we spoke about. For an example, the importance of energy production within the carbon cycle or the nitrogen cycle as well. That will help you a lot. So also remember to revise on the support systems in the animals, especially the human skeleton. As we have mentioned, its functions, it's to support, protect, and for movement and for blood cell production. So the main components will be the axial and the appendicular skeleton. So also learn about the types of the joints. We have the three types. We have the fixed joints, the hinge, the ball, and the socket. So also you must know how to draw and label the human skeleton like it is here in the diagram. So your exam tip will be know the joint type and the bone names, and also how they link, and also remember to know how many bones the human body has, and be able to label them as well. Remember also to revise on the transport system in the mammals, especially the human. Remember we learned about the circulatory system overview. So you must also learn about the structure and function of the heart as it is in our diagram, and the blood vessels, which are made up of the arteries, the veins, and the capillaries. Also the blood components and their functions, the double circulation system, like the diagram that we have on our side, label the heart and the pathway system. The tip is to trace the path of the blood throughout the body. Like for an example, how air goes into the blood, also throughout the body, and how air comes out. And also the air that is without oxygen and the one that is with oxygen. Remember also to revise on the reproduction in the vertebrates, especially in humans. We learn about the asexual and the sexual reproduction, the male and the female reproduction system. Remember the menstrual cycle and fertilization, and the importance of the birth control methods and the STDs. That is very important to know in sexual reproduction, how it enhances reproduction as well. So remember to revise on that. Something to consider is the genetic and the inheritance, how the DNA works, the structure and its function, the genes and the chromosomes, the Mendelian law of inheritance, the dominant and the recessive traits. Remember the Punnett square and the simple genetic problems, just like the diagram in our site. Also remember that the male is the one that carries the gender of a baby. So the male's reproductive is the one that determines whether the baby is going to be a boy or a girl. But also the female contributes within that, even though it's an X and chromosomes. So within that, there are also what we call, remember, the recessive and the dominant. For an example, in this graph here, the dominant male gene here on the first baby was the X, and then that is why the X and the X combined and they produce a female, a girl. So for an example, on the last one, you see the Y chromosomes and the X combined, and then it produced the male. So meaning here the dominant gene was the male chromosome that produced a male child. So remember on how to cross, to learn on how to cross pollination as well, even in plants as well. That will help you a lot, and understand how the Punnett square and the simple genetic problems work. So in examination preparation tip, review all the definitions and the diagrams that will help you, like learn on how to draw and also label the diagrams. Focus on understanding the process, not just memorizing, because you will forget. If you understand, at least you are able to apply your own knowledge and answer in your own words. That shows that you understand. Remember as well to practice on past exam question papers. That will help you a lot. And then as you practice them, ask your teachers questions where you are unsure. Even during the exam, if you don't understand the question, raise your hand, don't be shy, and ask your teacher to explain it in simple terms. So with my final encouragement for you today is that success is where preparation and opportunity meet. So with that being said, I wish you all the best with your examination, and thank you so much. There we go. David, I think we are done.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I see that the mute was doing its own thing. It was muting, but not really.